In this video, we shall see how to solve quadratic equations by factoring. Let's say we have the equation x to the power of 2 minus 36 equaling to 0. How can you solve this? We shall have x to the power of 2 minus, now what number when raised to the power of 2 will give you 36? That number is 6. 6 raised to the power of 2 is 36, and this will be equal to 0. And at this point we have a perfect square. And we know that from difference of two squares, if you have a to the power of 2 minus b to the power of 2, this will be equal to a plus b and then times a minus b. For this example, a will be equal to x and then b will be equal to 6. So this will become a, which is x, and then plus b, which is 6, times x minus 6 equaling to 0. And at this point, all you have to do is set this to be equal to 0 and also set this to be equal to 0. Therefore, we shall set x plus 6 to be equal to 0. If we take 6 to the right hand side, it will become negative. So we shall have x1 equaling to negative 6. And if we set x minus 6 to be equal to 0, once again we shall take negative 6 to the right hand side. So x2 will be equal to positive 6. So that's how you solve this. Now you try out this. Solve 5x to the power of 2 minus 45 equaling to 0. Now in this case, 5 and 45 don't give us a perfect square. However, 5 is the greatest common factor, so we can pull it out. This will give us 5 into, for the first part, we shall have 5x to the power of 2 divided by 5, and we shall remain with x to the power of 2. So this will be x to the power of 2 minus, and for the second part, we shall have 45 divided by 5, which is 9. So this will be 9 equaling to 0. And so we shall have 5 into x to the power of 2 minus, now 9 is the same as 3 raised to the power of 2. Equaling to 0. And at this point we have a perfect square. This time a will be equal to x and then b will be equal to 3. So we shall have 5 times x plus 3 and then times x minus 3 equaling to 0. And if we set x plus 3 to be equal to 0, then x1 will be equal to negative 3. And if we set x minus 3 to be equal to 0, then x2 will be equal to positive 3. Okay, try out this. Solve 16x to the power of 2 minus 49 equaling to 0. Now for this example, 16 and 49 will give us a perfect square. So what number when raised to the power of 2 will give you 16? That number is 4 raised to the power of 2 times x to the power of 2, and then minus, and then what is the number when raised to the power of 2 will give you 49. That number will be 7 raised to the power of 2 equaling to 0. And this can also be written as 4 times x raised to the power of 2 minus 7 to the power of 2 equaling to 0. And so for this example, a will be equal to 4x and then b will be equal to 7. So this will be 4x plus 7 and then times 4x minus 7 equaling to 0. So if we set 4x plus 7 to be equal to 0, if we take 7 to the right hand side, it will become negative, and therefore 4x will be equal to negative 7. And now we can divide both sides by 4. This will cancel with that, and so x1 will be equal to negative 7 divided by 4. And if we set 4x minus 7 to be equal to 0, then 4x will be equal to positive 7. And dividing through by 4, we shall get x2 to be equal to positive 7 divided by 4. Now what if we had x to the power of 2 minus 5x and then plus 6 equaling to 0? How can you factor this? For this example, the leading coefficient is positive 1. Therefore, to factor this, we need to find two numbers that multiply to positive 6 and add up to negative 5. The two numbers that multiply to 6 we have 2 and 3. And for this example, we can either have positive 2 and positive 3 or negative 2 and negative 3, because in both cases they multiply to positive 6. But for this example, we shall take negative 2 and negative 3 because they add up to negative 5. So to factor this, we shall write x minus 2 and then times x minus 3 equaling to 0. Now notice that we use the minus signs because we have negative 2 and negative 3. If you have a positive number, then you use the plus sign. And at this point, we can set x minus 2 to be equal to 0. And so x1 will be equal to positive 2. And if we set x minus 3 to be equal to 0, then x2 will be equal to positive 3. Okay, you try out this. Solve x to the power of 2 minus 2x and then minus 15 equaling to 0. Once again, we need to find two numbers that multiply to negative 15 and add up to negative 2. The two numbers that multiply to negative 15, we have negative 5 and positive 3, or positive 5 and negative 3. But for this example, we shall take negative 5 and positive 3 because they add up to negative 2. So we shall have x minus 5 and then times x plus 3 equaling to 0. And notice that we have a minus here because of negative 5, and then we have a plus sign because of positive 3. And if we set x minus 5 to be equal to 0, then x1 will be equal to positive 5. And if we set x plus 3 to be equal to 0, then x2 will be equal to negative 3. Now what if you had 3x to the power of 2 plus 2x and then minus 8 equaling to 0? How can we solve this by factoring? Notice that the leading coefficient is not positive 1, so we need to factor this using a different approach. First of all, we shall get 3 and multiply it by negative 8. And this will give us negative 24. And now we need to find two numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add up to positive 2. The numbers that multiply to negative 24, we can have 1 and negative 24, 2 and negative 12, 3 and negative 8, and then 4 and negative 6. Now 4 plus negative 6 will give us negative 2. But for this example, we have positive 2. So instead of using 4 and negative 6, we shall use negative 4 and positive 6. So we shall have 3x to the power of 2. Now what we need to do is replace the middle term, which is 2x, with negative 4x and positive 6x. So this will be negative 4x and then plus 6x and then minus 8 equaling to 0. And now we can divide this into two parts. For the first part, we can pull out x because it is a common factor. So we shall have x into 3x to the power of 2 divided by x will give us 3x. So this will be 3x and then minus 4x divided by x, which is 4. So this will be 4 plus, and then for the second part, 2 is the greatest common factor. So if we pull it out, we shall have 6x divided by 2, which will leave us with 3x. So this will be 3x. And then minus 8 divided by 2, which is 4. So this will be 4 equaling to 0. And once again, 3x minus 4 is a common factor. So let's pull it out. So we shall have 3x minus 4. For the first part, we shall remain with x, and then for the second part, we shall remain with 2, equaling to 0. And now we can set 3x minus 4 to be equal to 0. And so 3x will be equal to positive 4. And if we divide through by 3, we shall have x1 equaling to 4 divided by 3. And if we set x plus 2 to be equal to 0, then x2 will be equal to negative 2. Now let's see how we can solve these quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. One of the equations we had was x to the power of 2 minus 5x plus 6 equaling to 0. And we got the answers to be x1 equaling to 2 and x2 equaling to 3. And now we are going to solve this using the quadratic formula and see if we get the same answers. Whenever you have an equation in the form ax to the power of 2 plus bx plus c equaling to 0, x will be equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b to the power of 2 minus 4 sc divided by 2 times a. Now for this example, a equals to positive 1, and then b equals to negative 5, and c equals to positive 6. And so x will be equal to negative b, which is negative 5, plus or minus the square root of negative b, which is negative 5 to the power of 2, minus 4 times a, which is 1, and then times c, which is 6. And this is divided by 2 times 1. And so we shall have x equaling to negative times a negative is positive, so this will be positive 5 plus or minus the square root of negative 5 to the power of 2, which is 25, and then minus 4 times 6, which is 24, divided by 2. And so x will be equal to 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus 24, which is 1, divided by 2. And so x will be equal to 5 plus or minus the square root of 1, which is 1, divided by 2. So x1 will be equal to 5 minus 1 divided by 2, and this is equal to 5 minus 1, which is 4, divided by 2, and this is equal to 2. And then x2 will be equal to 5 plus 1 divided by 2, and this will be equal to 6 divided by 2, which is 3. So we get the same answers. Now let's look at another example. One of the questions we solved was 3x to the power of 2 plus 2x minus 8 equaling to 0. And we found x1 to be equal to 4 divided by 3 and x2 to be equal to negative 2. Now let's use the quadratic formula and see if we get the same answer. For this example, a will be equal to positive 3, b will be equal to positive 2, and then c will be equal to negative 8. So we shall have x equaling to negative b, which is 2, plus or minus the square root of b, which is 2 to the power of 2, minus 4 times a, which is 3, and then times c, which is negative 8. And this is divided by 2 times a, which is 3. So x will be equal to negative 2 plus or minus the square root. Now 2 to the power of 2 will be 4. And then 3 times negative 8 will give us negative 24. Negative 24 times negative 4 will give us positive 96. So this will be plus 96 divided by 2 times 3, which is 6. Therefore, x will be equal to negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 plus 96, which is 100, divided by 6. So, x will be equal to negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 100, which is 10, divided by 6. Therefore, x1 will be equal to negative 2 plus 10 divided by 6. And this will be equal to negative 2 plus 10 is positive 8 divided by 6. Now both 8 and 6 are divisible by 2. So we shall divide this by 2 and also divide this by 2. 8 divided by 2 will give us 4. And then 6 divided by 2 will give us 3. And that's our answer of x1. And then x2 will be equal to negative 2 minus 10 divided by 6. And this will be equal to negative 12 divided by 6. And then 12 and 6 are divisible by 3. So we shall divide this by 3 and also divide this by 3. Negative 12 divided by 3 will give us negative 4. And then divided by 6 divided by 3, which is 2. And so we shall get negative 2. Therefore, we get the same answers. So that's how you can solve quadratic equations by factoring and by using the quadratic formula. If you have found this video helpful, don't forget to like it and also subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.